Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Lynn Stevens. I'm with the Ohio Department of Transportation. I'm administrator in the Office of Outreach in our Division of Small Business and External Workforce Development. So glad to be with you here today. Thank you for taking time out of your very busy schedules to join us. And we're excited to offer you a topic today in our symposium webinar series. The topic is Successful Partnerships on Ohio Transportation Projects. Before we dive into the topic, just a little bit about our division for those who may not know us as well. Uh, Next slide. Oh, we have a series of symposium webinars for our transportation series. So we have a business development series and a workforce development series. So you'll see on the screen and also at the link on this page, when we send it out, you'll be able to click on it and see the remaining webinars we have, as well as the ones that we've had in the past. Each webinar is recorded and it is put on our website so that you can go back and look at the recordings at your convenience. So we started May 5th. We'll go through September 29th. Thank you. Next slide. ODOT, our mission is to provide a transportation system that is safe, accessible, well-maintained, and positioned for the future. As you know, ODOT, we support the state highway system and transportation initiatives statewide. We are more than $3 billion per year enterprise, and ODOT invests the bulk of its resources in system preservation through maintenance, construction, and snow and ice operations. Mm. Our Small Business and External Workforce Development Division is led by Deborah Green, our Deputy Director, and we have three offices. Our Office of Small Business Services, led by Jalita Stoltz, the Administrator. Office of Contractor Compliance, Katie LaPlace is our Administrator. Office of Outreach, and I am the Administrator. With the Office of Small Business Services, so if you're DBE or SBE certified, you are familiar with the process to become certified. So that's our office that handled your certification and approved you for your certification. We also have supportive services under our Small Business Services office, on-the-job training, external workforce development, Title VI issues, ADA issues, and Section 504 issues. For our compliance office, as you may be familiar if you're a sub on our project, prevailing wage requirements, certified payroll, prompt payment, and then our goal setting for our projects is also handled under our compliance office, and DBE reporting requirements, goal attainment, good faith efforts, and commercial useful function. In our Office of Outreach, we have our outreach managers who are liaison for those doing business with ODOT, seeking to do business with ODOT. We do a lot of webinars, educational initiatives, trainings, and workshops in person and virtual like we do today. And for the consultants, we help to monitor the DBE and EDGE development goal plans. Next slide. Here are our four outreach managers that make up our Office of Outreach. Michelle Newman is our Northwest Ohio manager, handling districts 1, 2, and 3. Tony Perry Gillespie is our Southwest Ohio Regional Outreach Manager, handling districts 7, 8, and 9. Lorraine Stevens, our Central and Southeast Regional Outreach Manager, handling districts 5, 6, and 10. Jennifer Christ, our Northeast Ohio Regional Outreach Manager, handling districts 4, 11, and 12. So if you're in these districts, need assistance, have questions, need direction, please consider us a first stop for you, and we'll help you in whatever way that we can. Thank you. So we'll go ahead and get started with today's webinar. Again, Successful Partnerships on Ohio Transportation Projects. We have two primes and two subs. Pete Kinzer, Shelly and Sands, Prime Contractor. Tony Ramos with TFR Construction. Kristen Hosni with Resource International, our Prime Consultant. And Savvas Sophocleous with DHDC Engineering Consulting, our sub-consultant. So we'll have a panel discussion throughout the webinar with questions for each of our presenters, and we'll wrap it up, bring it all together at the end. So with that, we will just ask everyone to do a quick self-introduction according to the order on screen. So Pete, if you wouldn't mind going first, introduce yourself, please.
Thank you, Lynn. I'm Pete Kinzer. I live in Columbus, Ohio. I've worked with Shelly and Sands for approximately 21 years. I'm a project manager and a registered professional engineer. Went to Ohio State before it was the Ohio State University back in 91. I have two kids, both students at Ohio State and married to my wife, Julie. And I thoroughly enjoy working with ODOT and all the folks involved with this symposium today in the construction world. So I appreciate you having me.
Thank you very much. Mr. Tony, could you do a quick introduction, please?
Yeah, Tony Ramos, the owner of TFR Construction and Statewide Concrete Pumping. I started TFR in 2015. We started as an actual residential concrete company, and we built it to all we do now is commercial and infrastructure work. I purchased Statewide Concrete Pumping in 2024 from Jim Kirkwood. We turned 55 years old this year, founded in 1971, and I'm a concrete guy at heart, and if I won the lottery, that's probably what I do, travel the country and pour concrete for free. So
Okay. Awesome. Thank you. Ms. Kristen Hosni, would you mind introducing yourself, please?
Hi, everyone. My name is Kristen. I work for Resource International, woman-owned firm headquartered here in Columbus. I'm very blessed to have worked here for nearly 17 years. I'm the Vice President of Marketing Services here for the firm. I work directly with the owners. It's a family-owned firm. So blessed to work here. Personally, I have 3 children, 2 in college, one in middle school, and I'm have 2 degrees from Ohio University. Go Bobcats.
Thank you very much. And last but not least, Mr. Savvas, would you mind doing your introduction?
Thank you, Lynn. My name is Savvas Sophocleous. I'm the Vice President and partner of DHDC Engineering Consulting. Been in business since 2012, headquartered in Columbus with the satellite office in Middletown. Personally, we live in Columbus. I'm originally Greek. My wife and I were both alumni of Ohio State, have 3 children, and one ready to graduate from Ohio State. And thank you for having us.
Thank you as well for being here. Thanks, everyone. Okay, well, we'll go ahead and start with our first question. Let's see who we have. All right, with our contractors, with our subs rather. What services do you offer, and what is your primary motivation for starting your business? If you don't mind, Mr. Savvas, if you would start off, please.
Absolutely. We are an engineering consulting firm. We provide geotechnical engineering, special inspections, testing and material inspections related to concrete, soil, asphalt, steel, masonry, and also subsurface utilities engineering. There wasn't really a primary motivation to start a business. It was more of an opportunity that came our way, and we couldn't refuse it. It has some motivations in regards of how to change the business aspect of running the business, but we couldn't refuse to kind of innovate ourselves along the way for the better term of the business. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Tony Ramos, what services do you offer, and what was your primary motivation to start your business?
Our primary services is we're a flat work company and a concrete pump company. We provide everything from sidewalk packages to structural to bridge deck pours, and then our concrete pumping side. I mean, we're the 70-71 split down there is our project. Statewide has been on it, ever since. I think we have 5 more years left on that job. What motivated me to start my business? I worked at, I've been doing concrete since I was 10 years old, working for my father. I used to get suspended from school, so he would make me go and work with me. And it kind of out of a thing, like my father was my hero growing up, so I never wanted to be anything else but a concrete guy like my dad. So and that's what I did. And when I was in my 20s, my dad didn't want me to do concrete anymore, and he forced me to go get a job at actually Budweiser because he said I needed a pension, and I worked there for almost 18 years. And Anheuser-Busch was bought out by InBev, which changed the whole structure of the company, and it was more out of a necessity to make my own way because the company had changed direction and I didn't want to be there anymore. And that's when I started TFR Construction.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, we'll go to our next question. Again, for our subs, Mr. Savvas, what are some challenges you have encountered as you began to expand your services at DHDC?
I believe the challenges are universal for everybody starting a business, right? The first one is, establish a reputable name that you provide great services. So people want to use you. The financial aspect, that was the most challenging, actually. I should have started with that one because banks are not that willing to help you out as you start. You have to prove yourself. Then you establish a line of credit. And then you proceed over giving good services, and as the work spreads, you grow with it. But the biggest challenge will be the financial aspect of it.
Okay. Mr. Tony, some challenges you've encountered as you expanded your business?
I would say, he hit the nail on the head. I mean, the money aspect of it's a hard thing. I mean, I have 3 principles of what I do in business. It's, can I get the work? Can I do the work? Can I get paid for the work? I mean, those are the 3 things that I do the most. But the most challenging thing for me is I'm really good at concrete. I can build anything, and there's nothing I can't do in the field. But the office infrastructure for me, in order to build my business, getting on city projects and dealing with commercial contractors, a lot of those people, they have whole teams of people in the office. And when I started, I didn't have that. So I would work, 12 hours a day and come home and work 4 hours doing all the paperwork because, I was small and I couldn't hire somebody to do the office work. And there were a few challenges because you hire somebody and they say they know how to do it, and then they don't know how to do it. And then you're 3 months in and the billing doesn't get done. So the office infrastructure for me for a small business is really hard for me because I know how to do the work. I can get the work done and I know everything about it. But the office side was the biggest challenge for me, I think. I mean, the money, of course, too, but is that was the hard thing because if you don't have the office side, you can't bill somebody and you can't get paid. And I went almost 5.5 months one time without any money coming in because I had somebody in the office that thought, that I thought they were doing their job, and it just kind of steamrolled. But I made it through it, so it just made for a good story.
All right, wonderful. Thank you both. Okay, next question. How large is your staff and what is your service area? Do you have offices outside of Ohio as well? Mr. Savvas?
Yes, I will take this. We started with 12 in 2012, and we're 37 in 2026. We have grown enough with pains, like Tony says, and sacrifices. We have a headquarters in Columbus, Ohio, and we have our satellite office in Middletown. We do not provide, we do not have offices outside of Ohio. We're concentrated more in the central and south part of Ohio. We tried to venture in Cleveland, but there were many obstacles and trials. And we kind of like felt like our niche is in these areas that I mentioned a minute ago.
Mm, Awesome. Thank you. Mr. Tony Ramos, how large is your staff? What's your service area? Do you have offices outside of Ohio as well?
So TFR Construction has 23 guys in the field, and we have 5 people in the office over there. We try to stay mainly in Columbus, within like a 40 to 50 mile radius. Right now we're in Marietta, Ohio, Parkersburg, West Virginia, and they're doing another job in West Virginia. Down, they just bid and they were just awarded. Statewide concrete pumping, we travel the whole state, Pennsylvania, Kentucky, and sometimes we go to Indiana. And there's at statewide here we have 24 employees.
Wow. Thank you. All righty. Next question, please. For our subs again, who's your target audience or customer, and what is the ideal type of business or customer for your services? Mr. Savvas?
That's a very tricky question. Since the opportunity came for us to take over, we already had an idea of who is our customer, and it's more government, cities, counties, all that. The ideal type of business, what is our customer for your services, large companies, large projects that allows us to also grow with that. We're kind of like careful on smaller scale projects, I guess from bad experiences and not having the affordability to have those projects that don't go well. We like to work with large scale companies. But what we have changed, and what I said, we innovated ourselves. We gave high respect to our competitors. And one great example is resource. We understood that, we could learn from resource, we could learn from their growth and their experience. And there was no way we could really compete with them. So we established good relationships with our competitors and let that relationship grow, to projects and mentoring. And that's why you're here on this panel, right? And that worked out very well, especially with resource.
Awesome. Great. Mr. Tony, your target audience or customer and your ideal business or customer for your services, please.
Pete Kinzer. No.
Thank you, Tony.
So on the TFR side, it's all the at risk. On the commercial side of the company, it's all the at risk GCs. The Turners, the Walshes, the Elfords, Cornucocosing, people like that. Those are mainly the people we deal with. There's a company called Construction One, and then then like on the the side of the Shelly and Sands, the Cocosings, Complete General, Miller Brothers, Beaver Excavating. Those are the guys that for our bigger infrastructure work. On the statewide concrete pumping side, our main customers, and I'd say about 90% of our work is all infrastructure work, bridges, things like that. And so it'd be Shelly and Sands, Cocosing, Complete General, Beaver Excavating. I've looked into it, and statewide we pump about 60% of the bridge decks within 75 miles of Columbus. I mean, that's really our thing right there. is doing is pumping for infrastructure. I think that was it, right? Or
Yes, that was it. Go ahead, please.
okay. No, I'm done. Thank you.
Oh, okay, great. Next question is, do you seek public sector and private sector opportunities for your business? Mr. Savvas, you sort of alluded to that, but do you do private sector as well as public?
Yes, the public sector amounts about 75 now percent of business, and the private sector 25 to 2025. Yes, we do. It's not our priority, but after some years in business, has some established good relationships with some developers. From the Weilers to the Stavros to Sabatinos, and show that we were good at what we do, and that grew, a private sector. But our public sector is our major the revenue. Especially City of Columbus, Franklin County, Ohio Department of Transportation, and airports. We do a lot of airports with Stantec, and now we're working on the John Glenn International Airport, the new air terminal. That has been a big boost for us. Yes, that's it.
Awesome. Mr. Tony, private sector and public sector, do you do?
Yeah, we do both. I mean, I would love to do nothing but, public work, but it just depends on the opportunities that are out there, and we bid on everything. If it makes money, it makes sense to us, and that's how we look at it.
Okay, great. Thank you. Next question. Well, Mr. Savvas, you already answered this one. What percentage of your services do you provide for private versus public? And Mr. Tony, would you say 50-50, 60-40, 70-30, one way or the other?
It really depends on what we have in our pipeline. Like right now, we have our book of work is, I think they have work until, I looked at it the other day, and they have enough work until December. And, so what we typically do is, it just depends on how the jobs end up coming out, because it's like, we could get a bunch of public sector work, and we've already got it in the pipeline, so we're not going to bid any more work, so we'll just pass on things, or we'll bid it at a good margin, and if we get the job, it's going to put a strain on us, but we figure out how to do it. I would say statewide is, like I said, 90% public sector work, and 10% of it's would be commercial, or it would be we do some residential at the statewide side, but TFR, man, it just really just depends on what we have in the pipeline and what we're looking at, and what comes through our bid boards. And the estimators, that's their biggest job over there is, they have to make sure that we have enough book, and we try to stay out 7 months of work. So it really depends on what's coming down the pipeline.
Okay. Fair enough. Thank you. Let's see. What's our next question? Okay. So just for DHDC, Mr. Savvas, how has your mentorship with Resource International helped you with being pre-qualified for certain work types, or is pre-qualification a goal you have in the future as far as ODOT work is concerned specifically?
Yes, resource has been a blessing to us, if I may use that word. Has helped us grow into certain areas in the public sector and in the services of subsurface utilities engineering enormously. Their department is extraordinary. Couldn't be more thankful. A pre-qualification is a goal we have in the future. And we're working hand to hand, and we have placed a lot of discussions of how they will be instrumental of us achieving that pre-qualification, especially with the Ohio Department of Transportation. So we look forward to a brighter future and more endeavors with resource.
Great, thank you. For Mr. Tony, are there any pre-qualifications you're looking for as you continue to obtain work on ODOT projects? Or
Yeah. So at TFR, they just got a bonding for $10 million, and they're looking to get pre-qualified to actually do like a prime on smaller jobs, that aren't major. Having a mentorship has been great with Pete because a lot of people they don't know me. They're not going to answer the phone. They don't know who TFR is, or you call and they won't answer. But Pete has really facilitated a lot of conversations and got me a seat at a table just to have a conversation for people to at least know who we are. And that is one of the biggest things that has really helped, is because I haven't met anybody who won't answer the phone for Pete yet. So it's helped out a lot.
I bet. Yes, Pete is great, wonderful, well known. That's awesome. All righty. Thank you very much. Oh, okay. Another question for the subs. I think this is one of our last ones. Do you recommend that businesses become certified, like SBE, MBE, EDGE, VBE, WBE, by private or public sector? Do you just recommend generally that certification is a good thing to have as a business owner? Mr. Savvas?
Absolutely. The purpose, we are an SBE, and EDGE certified, and the purpose of it is to help these small businesses like ourselves, have that supporting hand when you first start specifically, okay, to be able to sustain yourself and survive. We're fortunate to have firms like the MS, the EMHTs, the Stantec, the Ramos. I can go down the line. But above all, establishing relationships with resources that pretty much look at them like an example of what who would like to be. So these SB, MB, and EDGE all absolutely help because they open doors that otherwise you probably wouldn't have that opportunity. And it's to give that opportunity to a small business to grow in the public sector. I'm not so sure in the private sector how much they apply. Okay, found it sometimes beneficial, but on the public sector for business, 100%. And joining also organizations like COMTO, and other MB organizations, those are highly important as well in the growth of a small business like ours. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Mr. Tony, is SBE, MBE, EDGE, etc. certification, do you recommend that for small businesses, for public or private sector work?
Yeah. Yes. I mean, we're MBE EDGE. We were DBE. We're working on the SBE certification right now. And so my father, his construction company in 1988 was a certified MBE company. And I saw what it did for him. So when I started my company, that was a real big thing for me to become MBE, because my actual goal when I first started was just to do, City of Columbus work, public sector work, things like that. And it really opened the doors. And once people figure out who you are and that you're competent in doing the work, it's it's helped because, a lot of people use the participation, but they also need good subcontractors to perform the work. And once you prove it to them, I mean, that word of mouth travels and people just keep calling. And it's really helped a lot.
Mhm. Especially to get in the door, probably. Wonderful. Okay. Finally, what advice would you give to aspiring entrepreneurs who want to do business in Ohio's transportation industry in particular? Mr. Savvas, do you have any advice?
Yes, hard work, honest work, respect. Establish yourself as a solid company. Amount to your failures. We're going to have at one point or another a bad project. Make sure you finish it right. That goes a long way. But having good employees, okay, that they believe on what you're doing, that they present you out in the field correctly, because if somebody's unhappy, they're not going to show a smiling face on the side. That doesn't represent DHDC very well, right? So you employ good employees, or take care of your employees. That's very, very important. So when they're out there, they represent you, to the highest level that they can. And for any adversity and challenge you have, can overcome with hard work, and patience. And in my case, a lot of praying. Thank you.
Wonderful. Yes, thank you. Mr. Tony, any advice for those who are entering your industry?
It's the motto at TFR. It's on our webpage. It's on our walls. It's on our core values. And I mean, it's just one sentence: do the right thing even when nobody's looking. That's it.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Okay, and attendees, a reminder, or maybe I should just state, there's a Q&A option at the top right side of your screen. If you have any questions, please feel free to type them in, and we will get to those questions right after our Prime portion ends. But just want to let you know, you can have a option to type a question in. Okay, now we'll turn to the primes, and then we'll bring it all together quickly at the end. Mr. Pete Kinzer, how did your firm begin a working relationship with TFR Construction?
Yes, Lynn. Great question. Actually, I believe it was 2020. Tony might have a different year, but I believe we went to an ODOT matchmaker event downtown for the I-70 Crossroads project. We were not successful with that project. I think Kokosing did it, but I met some of Tony's staff at that function, and it was a meet and greet put on by ODOT. So it was a wonderful event, and we set up a meeting. And lo and behold, I didn't meet Tony until the follow-up meeting at Shelly and Sand's office. So that's kind of how it all started. And never met each other before, started talking, and I could just tell Tony was a very motivated guy from day one. He doesn't like me to tell the story, but he was a world-class power lifter, and Tony Ramos will outwork anybody. And I think that stands true with this company and the people that represent Tony. But we met at a matchmaker function in 2020.
Awesome. Thank you for that plug. Any other subs?
Appreciate that, Pete.
Yes, thank you. Matchmakers are important. Everyone taking a little bit of time out your schedules can pay big dividends. So thank you so much. And you've been so supportive of all our matchmakers. So thank you. Next question, again from Mr. Pete. How has your working relationship with TFR helped your firm on ODOT and other construction projects? So how's it been helpful, your relationship with TFR?
Absolutely. And hey, I appreciate Tony's kind comments earlier about, me helping him network, or Shelly and Sands helping TFR network. But Tony has probably gotten us out of more jams than anybody. And it's truly a win-win. A lot of people say, oh, thank you for being a mentor, or for being a prime contractor. Well, Shelly and Sands doesn't survive without the help of companies like TFR and the other DBE or SBE companies that we work with. But to answer your question, how has the working relationship with TFR helped us? Tony has come out to projects on I-670 as recently as last year on an ODOT job on the west side of Columbus, where another pumping company said they could not do something. We were in a jam. Somebody called Tony. Guess what? Tony comes out with his pumping company, goes the extra mile, gets the job done. Forget being DBE, SBE. They're competent, they do the work, and they will out hustle most other companies. They've helped us on ODOT projects. I worked with Tony and his folks pumping concrete on bridges on the south side of Columbus on 23-270 interchange. They do work for us on a regular basis on City of Columbus jobs. Tony and I are getting ready to work on the $2 billion terminal at the Columbus airport. He's doing some concrete work for us, and he's helped us achieve our 25% goal with the folks at the airport authority. So, you know, we've invested some time in Tony and TFR, and we've gotten it back tenfold. And I truly mean this when I say that the mentor protege program, at least in years past, has probably been better to us as a prime contractor than it has been to some of the subs that we've worked with. It's been a blessing, and I'll use that word repeatedly because it's really helped us out tremendously.
Wow, awesome. Mentor protege as well. Yay. Micah, if you're on. Yay. Okay, thank you, Mr. Pete. Next question. What work types do you look for when considering whether to use an S or DBE firm as a subcontractor on ODOT or other construction projects? So what work types do you look for from subs? Mr. Pete?
Yes, I'm
Okay.
here. I should probably stop turning my camera on and off, huh?
No.
Yes. To Tony and the other gentleman's point, Shelly and Sands tries to go out and do whatever work we can. You don't always have a choice of what's out for bid. Sometimes you have to bid on work that's not as appealing to you. We obviously like asphalt, bridge work, and big general GC work. But we will take anybody that can do anything. If you would like to submit a bid to us and you have a certain work type, we specifically look for things that we don't typically do: seating, electrical, trucking, or a few of the big ones. Folks like TFR, B&G, Lionel have helped us on other work types, whether it's pouring bridge concrete or placing aggregate, 304 on a roadway project. But we are open to any type of work type. But typically we try to focus on the ones that we don't perform in-house. But we can always, even if we have to split something up, we're happy to share the pie to get a project and split up the aggregate or the paving or anything else. So we're open about anything, Lynette.
Awesome. Thank you. Let's see. Are there any work types that are difficult to find that are provided by certified S or DBE firms on ODOT or other projects, or just work types in general that are difficult to find from subs on projects?
Work types aren't necessarily easier or harder. Some are more challenging, maybe from a technical standpoint. Sometimes it's harder to find DBE or SBE subs that might have a solid technical background in bridges, or maybe they're not big enough to get into that type of work. Sometimes it's hard just to find any work type on a job, just because of the amount of work that's out there. To Tony's point, he might not be bidding a lot of work right now in a certain arena because he's got backlog or, in the pipeline per se. So it kind of depends on what the market is and who's available. Some of the smaller or some of the smaller DBE, SBE subs might not have as many resources. So even though somebody does seating or, maybe bridge sealing for you all the time, maybe they're not readily available because they already have 6 or 7 projects on the other side of the state. So it really varies from bid letting to bid letting what we struggle to find work types for, or people that can do certain work types.
Okay, thank you very much. Any hurdles that you've encountered when partnering with a S or DBE firm on construction projects? Any hurdles?
I think the construction world in general has its own hurdles. It's lots of risk. You're dealing with weather and things beyond your control, design changes, plan error sometimes. Things happen, right? Equipment failures. But I can honestly say all the DBEs that we work with on a regular basis and SBEs, MBEs are completely self-sufficient. Again, Lynn, the only thing that I can think of, and this happens to Shelly and Sands, we're one of the larger companies in Ohio, but everybody has limited resources, limited equipment, limited manpower. So that's probably one of the hurdles we deal with the most, but that's not necessarily specific to an S or DBE firm. It's just kind of life right now, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Great, fair enough. Thank you. Now turning to resource, Miss Kristen. Now, resource, as Savvas kind of alluded to, you have the experience of being DBE certified as a subconsultant that has grown to be prime consultant on ODOT projects in particular. Can you just talk a little bit about that path that you've had to grow from being the DBE or subconsultant and now becoming a prime consultant?
Absolutely. Thanks, Lynn. So for those that might not be familiar with Resource International, our founder and CEO, Farah Majizadeh, she founded the company in 1973. And so we celebrated our 50 years a few years back in 2023. But her goal was always to grow beyond a one-man shop. So, she brought on her husband, Cameron, and who was an Ohio State professor at the time, and she brought on his engineering students. So when I joined the firm in 2009, there were about 150 employees, and the firm was still DBE at that time. And now we're over 200 employees, and we've recently graduated from the EDGE program. And as well, with the DBE environment changing, we are not going to be falling into that arena anymore. So, but the goal of Farah's goal and the owner's goal was to always graduate from those programs. And thankfully, they've always had amazing partners that on the consultant side that gave meaningful roles on projects where we had the opportunity to focus on quality work. So as we started to grow, one thing and graduated from these certifications, we realized that we had to change the mindset of our employees, that we weren't going to get the phone calls for, hey, can you join our team for this? And can you join our team for that? Those calls might not be as frequent because we didn't hold that certification anymore. So that required changing the mindset of the employees to really focus on the relationships with both the consultant and the owner, and really focus on those relationships while producing the quality work so that we could stand on our own 2 feet. So that's kind of where we are today. And it's been a pleasure to be employed with the company and see that growth from 2009 until now. So.
Absolutely. Awesome. All right. Thank you. And then how did your firm begin a working relationship with DHDC? Jennifer, if you can go to the next slide too, please.
Yeah, I love this question because I was here when this relationship started. And I didn't realize I liked when Savvas said that their company's been around since 2012. So in 2017, I remember this. It was an ODOT programmatic. EMH&T was putting together their write-up for the Franklin 70 Far East Freeway for the design portion. And they brought us on their team under them, and then we helped with the developmental DBE goal. That was part of our role. Was DHDC was also on the team, and so for that was our first interaction with them, and they performed some drilling on the project and also helped with some geotechnical plans and profiles. and they came to our offices at Resource International and sat with us and did some training and mentoring. And that was, we both reported to EMH&T on that project. So that was our first project with them in 2017. And then I kind of just documented some other projects over the years with City of Columbus and some ODOT, and working out at the airport right now. Also CODA has been some new projects we've been working on with them. And doing primarily one thing that we've really been focusing on lately is working with their SUL level A service. And in 2023, I had the pleasure of working with Savvas on a proposal for the City of Columbus, where they won their first prime contract with the City of Columbus. So that's kind of the timeline now. It's basically been 10 years. So we're looking forward to continuing the next 10 years.
Awesome. Wow. How has your working relationship with DHDC helped your firm on ODOT or other construction projects? So I think your
Yeah,
previous.
so I was thinking about this question, and it might, like, people kind of say this a lot, and I know Pete kind of touched on it with Tony, but really with DHDC, it is kind of like they're almost an extension of our team. And so it's so seamless that it's not, sometimes when you work with other folks on projects, you don't feel as comfortable, we're at this point now where I just want to give the example. When Savvas was on vacation, he was over in Greece a few weeks ago, and he called us. There was something important happened. I wasn't involved in this, but he ended up calling even when he was across the world. And I mean, that's like a true team player. So I would say DHDC helps Resource just in the fact that communication is flawless. Um, and that's just right there is how he's helped us.
There is a
Awesome.
whole story behind it, Kristen.
Oh,
Jesus deserves it. Oh, that's so funny.
Wonderful. Thank you.
uh-huh.
Next question. Ms. Kristen, are there particular work types or services that are difficult to find certified SPE consultant firms to partner with you on ODOT or other construction projects?
Yeah, I was talking to Marcia about this. Marcia is Executive Vice President for Resource International. She's one of our firm's owners. She wasn't able to be here with us today, but every programmatic, if we're priming something, we're consultant in the directory, obviously we're looking at the firms we've already have relationships with, but we would say as a general consensus that design services are still, there's still not as many firms out there that fall into those categories, specifically with like traffic and lighting services. And we don't provide those in-house. So
Mhm.
we tend to look to those services to sub those out to potential small or DBE firms. Also specialty services, there's not very many firms that provide those, like the underwater bridge inspections or again, SUL. There aren't very many firms that are even pre-qualified for those services, let alone, the smaller DBE firms. So there is kind of an open door in that, service. If there's somebody out there looking for an idea that, hey, maybe I could become an underwater diver. You never know, you know what I mean? Then they'd be opening up, they'd be getting a lot of work because there's not very many firms that hold that pre-qual.
Mhm.
Just as an example, that might not be the
Mhm.
best
Mhm.
example, but
Mhm.
it's an example. If someone's potentially has that and could get pre-qual for it, or they go out on their own, it's something that could open the door for someone.
Mhm. Great. Thank you. Let's see next. How important is pre-qualification for a subconsultant in your partnership on transportation projects?
I think for ODOT, and also we do other DOT projects too. So it's not just ODOT, it's any department of transportation.
Mm.
They, across the board, they have pre-qualifications. So you have to have those pre-qualifications. So obviously it's very important. But we do work with DHDC for SUL because they help us with the vacuum excavation and their non-destructive vehicle. So in cases like that, you don't necessarily have to have the pre-qual. But I would say as a general rule that yes, pre-qualification for having a subconsultant is very important, but there's always, case by case basis where there might be a particular service that doesn't require a pre-qual that you might
Mhm.
use somebody for a transportation project.
Mhm. Cool. Okay, thank you. Let's see. And what's the process for an S or DBE firm or any sub to inquire about working with your firm on ODOT or other construction projects?
So at Resource International, we're pretty flexible, like if someone wants to work with us. So we have several business development folks that work for the company. I'm one of them as vice president of marketing, and my supervisor, Marcia Lampman, she's, one of the owners. A lot of people know Marcia. And then we have Steve Johnson, who is our senior vice president of engineering. So you'll see our faces out and about at conferences and networking events. And so if you see anyone with Resource International out at a networking event, I would say you can always approach anyone from Resource International and introduce yourself and inquire about, hey, could we set up a meeting with your team? And depending on who the person is you see, because, I consider everybody in our firm a marketer. So even if you see like one of our engineers out and about and you want to introduce yourself and give them your business card, they can always put you in touch with me or Marcia or Steve. And then we could always set up a phone call or a luncheon. So it's pretty like flexible. But we try to, when working with new firms, obviously we'll want to see, learn what your capabilities are. We'll want to learn if you do have pre-qualifications. And then if there's a specific project that the firm might want to partner on, we would want to hear about that to see what type of, fit there might be. So yeah, I would just say reach out to me or Marcia or Steve, and our information's on our website. And also, if you see us out and about, at a networking event, just walk up to us.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Alrighty, for both of you, Shelly and Sands, maybe Mr. Pete, you can go first. What advice would you give to new SPE, DBE firms that are looking to work as a subcontractor with your firm on ODOT or other construction projects? Any advice for new firms?
Absolutely, Lynn. There are a lot of good contractors out there, DBE, SBE companies who might be doing private work. The ODOT world is a little bit different, right? Even though City of Columbus and ODOT are somewhat similar, each municipality has a different way of doing things. So I would say, as a representative of Shelly and Sands, do your homework, try to be knowledgeable about what you're doing, get that experience. Sometimes there's these misconceptions that, oh, I'm going to get into the mentor protege program, as it used to be called, and I'll buy an asphalt paver. I'm going to be an asphalt paver. Well, if you don't know anything about asphalt paver, you're just not going to get into the market and get into a new construction world as ODOT and just take off. Be realistic about your expectations. If you are successful, take on growth in a reasonable manner. Don't get overextended or bite off more than you can chew, per se. But you have to be self-sufficient. ODOT, Shelly and Sands, all these other contractors who are in the ODOT world will do everything possible to help everyone succeed, as newbies per se. But just make sure you got to hustle, you got to outwork everybody, and you have to do your homework. You have to help yourself before we can help you, but we're there to help as needed, 100%.
Thank you very much. You've been a great partner for new
Thank you.
firms. Ms. Kristen, advice?
Yeah, I mean, this is going to seem probably simple, but I'm going to say it because it still happens a lot. But and I have to do this as well if I'm looking to get on someone's team. But I get a lot of emails that are just it's just like AI type driven, like, hey, if you're looking to add, if you're pursuing this such and such GES with the city of Cleveland, I saw your name, add me to, I can provide such and such service if you would like to add me to your team. Well, it's like, I never heard of this firm. I don't know who the person, I've never met them. Like, I barely, like, it's an email that's just getting lost in my inbox. It doesn't stick out to me. So I would say, like, focus really on developing a personal connection. And
Mhm.
if you do need to make like a cold call to someone, pick up the phone. At least for me, that's how I am more likely to, um, if, if it's someone new who I have not met,
Mhm.
then I would prefer a phone call. And even if you go into my voicemail, I'm more likely to return a phone call than just look at like an email.
Mhm.
So that's my advice for someone that might be at that point. If you're looking for working with someone new or find someone to give you an introduction, whether it could be a virtual introduction. We've done that before too. Like, I'll say, hey, I might go to Pete and say, hey, so-and-so, can you give me a virtual introduction to this person? And I'm sure Pete would say, sure, no problem. I haven't had to do that yet, but I would. And if there was like a mutual person there, I know Pete would do a virtual introduction. I've done that with other, colleagues in the industry. That's the one good thing about the AEC industry is that so many people, once you develop your relationships, is they'll do that for you. And so I feel like that's a good thing to do. So I would take that as the advice.
Awesome. Wonderful. Thank you. Okay. And I think this is our final question for both Mr. Pete, Miss Kristen. You all have formed a wonderful relationship when working on construction projects. Can you talk a little bit about that experience, please?
Sure. Pete, I'll go first if you
Go ahead,
see.
ladies first, Kristen.
So, Shelly and Sands and Resource International, I was doing some digging last night just to confirm our working relationship. And apparently our first project goes back to 1997 in transportation. And what my experience with working with Shelly and Sands is our design department teams up quite often on the design build side, where we serve as the lead designer with Shelly and Sands. So, and I know that relationship has gone back like 15 years and on many award-winning projects. So we have been very blessed to have that relationship going on the transportation side, on the design build side. So yeah, so that's great. And then Pete has more to share as well.
Yes, and actually, it's ironic. Kristen and I have not met until today. I don't think officially. I'm sure we've run into each other somewhere at a trade function or OTEC or Conaway conference or something. But I went from the ODOT world 2 years ago to the airport world. I'm still doing ODOT work as well, but I got involved with the terminal expansion at John Glenn and also the two projects at Andrel. Rickenbacker, one of which is the Andrel expansion on the southwest corner of the property for their new hangar. But I've worked with Resource extremely closely the past 2 years. They've been working for John Glenn, the airport authority, and we were the $50 million contractor on the South Taxi Lane, which is kind of the preceding job to the terminal tie-in. Now we're on GMP6, which is we're doing not the terminal itself, but all the apron paving and asphalt and concrete around the new terminal. We're also paving for Beaver, excavating, and some other folks outside and along interim roadways or International Gateway. But Resource has been there on the inspection side, and because we have such a good relationship with them, they've helped us. They've helped us get through a lot of issues and technical things as far as inspection and getting things to pass, and thinking outside of the box, whether it's placing stone, asphalt, or anything for both the airport and the other side of the AOA fence. So great relationship, and we've helped each other, and I look forward to continuing to work with Resource.
Awesome. Wow. Thank you. Amazing. Well, again, that's our final question. We doesn't look like we have any questions yet, so maybe we won't have any. But if you do have a quick question, feel free to type it in the Q&A box. Other than that, let's see. Next slide is our next symposium webinar. We're going to switch back to the workforce development topic, opening employment doors for Generation Z, tools to prepare the generation for success in the workplace. Lisa Pat McDaniel, CEO of Aspire, will be our speaker. Micah Flanagan, our colleague here in the division, will be the moderator. July 28th at 1 p.m. I want to thank Mr. Pete Kinzer, Ms. Kristen, Hosni, Savvas, and Mr. Tony Ramos for your time today. You're extremely busy. Thank you so much for taking this hour out of your day. Appreciate it. And you gave nuggets for our small businesses who are attending. Hopefully you'll get some follow-up phone calls, and hopefully we'll make some new partnerships. Appreciate your time, your advice, your wisdom. Extremely helpful. And we thank you, and we wish everyone luck in the future as you continue to work on the ODOT and other transportation projects. So one more check, any questions? It doesn't look like we have any questions. The recording will be available. We'll send that out when it's available. And then you'll be able to go back and see any portions you may have missed. Well, for those who already left early. So thank you again once again for attending, and we'll see you on the next one. Have a great day. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Lynn.
you. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Lynn.
Thank you. Thank you.